February 4th, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show, where the simplest answers are usually the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the good social media stuff to keep the rational voices out in front where they belong. Like most people, I was waiting up to see some of the Iowa caucus results, but by around 12:30, 1 o'clock, I knew it just wasn't going to happen, and I figured it wasn't going to be until today. I kind of saw last night that there was some kind of mumblings around of maybe some coding issues or some issues going on with the actual release of the numbers. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go ahead to wait till tomorrow to see what's going on. It's already 12:15 in the PM Eastern Standard Time here. Still haven't received any results as the last time I checked. So there's live updates here on the Chicago Tribune. And so they're doing that. They really didn't have much to report last night, so it was kind of boring. I think Amy Klobuchar went up and started talking and doing, kind of like a little mini rally. Others kind of joined in. I do have my ideas about what's kind of going on here. It just seemed too convenient because we all know that Joe Biden is not, doing too well in the polls, even though the mass media is really trying to pull for him. They're not really trying to pull so much for Bernie Sanders. I will never understand that, just simply because Bernie Sanders simply has more supporters behind him, and we see that they are just as rabid and they are just as supportive as your typical MAGA or Trump supporter, however you want to refer to them as. But so this kind of led me to believe that there was something probably going on. They blamed it on a coding issue for the delayed results. So they're supposed to be getting that in sometime today. So his party official said final results will be released later Tuesday, blaming a coding issue, and offered assurances that the problem was not a result or a hack or an intrusion. I did see that the first kind of mentions of that was from actually the Elizabeth Warren campaign, saying that she wasn't hacked and all this kind of stuff. I think there's really kind of something going on. I do have the conspiracy in mind, and I think that the reason is that Joe Biden had a really, really terrible night. He just simply does not have as much support out there that the mass media is trying to lead you to believe that he has. And we have a very polarized campaign coming up, a campaign session, campaign year, in other words. And I believe in my heart of hearts, it's going to come down to Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, obviously, because he's the incumbent. And I know that the DNC is trying to hold this off as much as possible, but they know if they screw with Bernie Sanders again this year, and they kind of pull the rug out and they kind of screw over his supporters, then they're not going to have any of it, and that's going to cause a massive upheaval, a lot of social unrest. If they do that, it will also probably cause even more turmoil in the stock market. As we've seen, the stock market has been down and up and down. I mean, if you've noticed that, it's kind of just wavering around. It doesn't know really what to do, and we'll talk about that here briefly. I am no expert on the stock market. I'm no expert on economics, but I can see when certain patterns are forming, and the stock market is the ultimate pattern. It just completes, its cycle over. It's very cyclical, and the last, it's around every 10 years or so that we see this. It's supposed to be every 7 years that we see a cycle, but maybe it's every 10 years now, because back in 2008 when we had our, recession and, the collapse of the equity market due to the housing market bubble, we're seeing a new bubble actually form. And it's not really what you think. It's not really technology or anything like that, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this Iowa thing. I think that there is a possibility that there might be something nefarious going on, because Joe Biden, I think that he might have even come in close to last in the Iowa caucus. We'll have to know for sure here. In this report here, it looks like it was kind of a rundown of what kind of happens here. It looks like it starts all the way back at around 11:30, I think. 11:55, caucus organizers just had hours to test new app. Why are they using a new app? I just don't understand. Why do it this way? It makes no sense. Iowa's probably going to end up losing their caucus after this. They're just, they're probably just going to move on and do it somewhere else, but who knows? This goes to 12:35. Iowa Dems hold second late call with campaigns. And then it goes forward to 12:55. Democrat officials cite redundancies and vote totals. There was a lot of confusion last night. 1:15 a.m. caucus results to be released Tuesday, so they just kind of gave up at that point. Here going into today, 8:35 a.m., Iowa Democrats blame coding issue. Of course, there's this whole meme going on that the Democrats just need to learn how to code and all this kind of stuff. I don't know if you remember that whole learning how to code, but it's almost like an insult, but it's like almost like a okay boomer type thing. And then, of course, Donald Trump, he gets on the Twitterverse and just kind of just goes at it. He says it's not the fault of Iowa. It's the do-nothing Democrats' fault. As long as I'm president, Iowa will stay where it is. Important tradition. I don't know if that's really going to happen. He also goes further by saying when the Democrats start blaming Russia instead of their own incompetence for the voting disaster that just happened in the great state of Iowa. And finally, he says Democratic caucus is an unmitigated disaster. Nothing works, just like they ran the country. Remember the $5 billion Obamacare website? That should have cost 2% of that. The only reason that can claim a very big victory in Iowa last night is Trump. The only person that can claim that victory is Trump. I don't know why he's referring to himself in the third person. I don't know. Maybe it's an ego thing. Whatever. That's just Trump. He refers to himself in the third person all the time for some reason. But kind of interesting, Sean Sebastian here. I am the caucus secretary for Story County Precinct 1-1. I've been on holdover for about an hour to report the results. We have 6 delegates. So he just tweets out the results here. And it's kind of revealing here. First alignment. And if you don't know anything about how the caucus goes, there's basically a first alignment and then various other alignments after that, where people can, if they secure 15%, then they're kind of locked in. And then if they don't, then the other delegates can go somewhere else and support other candidates. So the first alignment had Bernie Sanders at 111, Elizabeth Warren at 82, Pete Buttigieg 47. This is not surprising. This really just kind of, now this isn't a tell-all, but it is our first kind of hint at what's going on here and why this might have happened. Bernie Sanders supporters are not taking any more. We have seen this over and over the past 6 to 12 months. They have been pretty clear that they're going to be watching everything very closely. They believe that they were slighted. I think that they were slighted last year, especially in California. And I really just believe, and I'm just going to make a prediction at this point, that Bernie Sanders is winning the Iowa caucus. He will probably go on and win the New Hampshire primary as well. He will probably inevitably be the DNC nominee going forward. I just don't think that Joe Biden really has enough diehard rabid supporters for him. I mean, he is the safe alternative, especially for corporate America, because he has been shown to be very lax with corporate America as far as taxation and corporate profits and all that other kind of stuff. And so that's really where we are at this point. So going forward here, say Biden campaign calls for answers from Iowa Democrats after delays in caucus results. Now, this can be explained pretty easily by looking at this next headline here. Biden reveals rivals in Iowa are starting to release their own caucus results, showing him in a distant fourth. So now we can really see kind of what's going on here. It says results Monday night's Iowa Democratic Party caucus are still not in, but 3 of former Vice President Joe Biden's rivals suggest he finished in 4th place. That doesn't mean he finished in 4th place, but we do see some of the results here that obviously Elizabeth Warren, Sanders, and Pete Buttigieg were probably going to be the big winners, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen so far. I could be wrong, but I know for a fact that Bernie Sanders is probably going to end up winning this whole thing anyway. So that really leads me on to the next thing. So the Iowa caucus, yeah, it's confusing. It was a complete disaster. But we have to kind of look at a few other things here. This recently just came out here. Soviet spy congratulated Bernie on prior election win. This was back in 1983, and this Soviet spy was his name. Let me see. What was his name? Looks like Vadim Kuznetsov, I'm not even know how to pronounce that, but in 1983, he had congratulated Sanders on his reelection as mayor and thanking Sanders for receiving him in Sanders' office. Now, this guy, this Soviet spy, was actually in Vermont. He was actually invited to Vermont, but he was actually a spy that was posing as a diplomat. And if you remember what I said in a lot of my other previous videos, that this was a common thing that the Soviets did, the communist Russia did. They actually sent Soviet spies over here and disguised them as diplomats. And this happened very frequently in the Soviet Union. So that is kind of interesting here. There was a letter here, and I'll go ahead and just put that up here. There was a letter here that was sent, and this was to Mr. Sanders. Please accept my sincere congratulations on your re-election to the post of mayor of Burlington. I have been following, with a great intent and the final stage of this mayoral race, which attracted a lot of coverage by the national news media. Thank you for receiving me in your office on February 3rd. Best wishes, Vadim. So now that this has come out, this isn't anything new. This was back in 1983, but it just gives more credibility to the fact that Bernie Sanders has a lot of soft spots for communist Russia. He has talked highly in the past and even recently of communist Russia and the Cold War era and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this should be very concerning to anybody that does value a free market and freedom. Now, what we are experiencing right now is not a free market. It's crony capitalism. That's what's going on. There's a lot of corruption going on. And I'll be the first to say that Trump is not helping this entire situation. He is not helping it at all. And quite frankly, it is making me and a lot of other people who are, centrist, somewhat conservative, somewhat liberal, people that are independents and libertarians. It's making a lot of us upset. Now, he did get a lot of our vote back in 2016, but a lot of us that aren't so deeply entrenched on either side, they're seeing, we're actually seeing what's going on, and we're saying, you know what, I really just don't know, if this is really good for the country. As far as the economy, Trump wants to talk about the economy a lot, but the fact of the matter is that the economy, if we look at the first thing I want to get to before I get to that, before I kind of get off on a tangent here, Twitter commonly allows people to threaten the lives of the Trump administration or his children or Republicans in general, and this trend is continuing here. We see the newest tweet here from the Hong Kong hermit. I didn't even know who the Hong Kong hermit is. I guess he's some sort of political activist that lives in Hong Kong, prefers to be unknown. He tweets here, actually it's in response to an article from The Guardian that says trophy hunting event to auction dream hunt with Donald Trump Jr., theguardian.com/environment, so forth and so on. But he responds is, I'd be fair. I'd give him a 15-minute head start Caucus rifle. I mean, this is pretty blatant. He wants to cause harm to Donald Trump Jr. There's a lot of people that just don't like Trump. They don't like his children. They think it's all nepotism, and he thinks he's greedy, a misogynist, and all this other kind of stuff, and so on. He's literally Hitler. But we've been hearing that for the last 3 years. But this has really got to stop. I mean, this very blasé, kind of attitude about causing harm to people. It doesn't matter if you don't agree with them. It doesn't matter if you just simply hate them because of whatever it is. Saying that you're going to kill someone and or implying it or anything of that matter is simply unacceptable. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it is the most insane leftist or the most alt-right insane white supremacist. It doesn't matter who it is. Saying that you're going to kill someone, you kind of separate yourself out of the realm of rational discussion and good ideas and moving forward, progressing this country in a good, in fact, the world in a good and positive way forward. It's just not good. And Twitter's not doing anything about this. And Facebook is seeing this. I mean, we've seen, Zuckerberg kind of, maybe he's coming to his senses. I don't know. But, the CEOs and those that run Twitter are simply not paying attention. They're just allowing anything. It's like anything goes. So back to the economy here. I just wanted to make a few points on this. Now, Trump is going to be making his speech here, State of the Union, coincidentally about the same time that there's going to be a vote to whether to impeach him or to acquit him. Well, we all know what's going to happen. There's going to be an acquittal and all this kind of stuff. And, we know the Democrats don't like that. They're very upset about this, but, it's time to move on. But as far as the State of the Union, we know that Trump's going to be talking about the economy a lot. He's going to be running on the economy. Okay, he's already been very clear about this. He's not going to be running on freedom or anything like that or protecting the Constitution. It's going to be mainly about the economy because he can brag about certain things. And, regardless of what side you're on, the economy, yeah, you could say technically it's doing okay, but we have to kind of look, and the stock market is always the first thing that's mentioned. So that's the only thing I'm going to talk about. And I'm not going to be getting into a lot of detail because, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I do read about this stuff all the time, and I do pay attention. But here recently, Deutsche Bank reveals a real reason stock market is an all-time high, and why it can't continue. So if you've ever heard of stock buybacks, some people don't really know what they are. At one point, I had no idea what they were as well. You just kind of have to learn these things. But stock buybacks are when corporations buy back their own stocks, and they do it for a lot of different reasons. They could be trying to inflate the price of their own stock, which is a natural result of doing that. They could be trying to retire certain stock because it's outdated and old and all that kind of stuff. But most of the time, they're buying back their own stock to increase the value of their own stock, to make it look like they're more profitable and increase the value of the stock, and as a result, it'll increase the value of the whole stock market. If we look at a chart here of the stock market, that's kind of maxed out there. You can see back towards the center here, we see that there is a sharp drop off. That was back in 2009, of course, with the collapse and the housing market bubble. And this has been, a steady march upward from somewhere around 18,000, I think, somewhere around there, to 20-something thousand dollars, 28,000 points. And a lot of people want to think, they look at this and say, oh, wow, everybody's portfolio is growing. People are actually, making more money. They're involved in the market. But that's not true. They're not really involved in the market. If we look at this next chart here, we see that the majority of all of the investing is from non-financial corporations. If we look here, the blue line it's been under zero all the way back from 2009. We can see that there was a kind of a spike there, and then it just kind of went down, and it's kind of been a flat line ever since then. The foreign sector has been pretty flat, and other domestic buyers has been declining all the way since 2009. So we see that the corporations are the ones who are inflating this market by using their cheap money that they've been allowed to have, especially with all the tax cuts that just recently went in back in 2017 with the Jobs and Tax Cut Act and all that. That the Trump administration put through. Yeah, it did a lot for the stock market because it created a lot of free money, and now corporate debt is around 50% of what it was back in 2009. So it's just getting worse, and since the stock market is so much higher and everything's so inflated, when it does collapse, and there's a lot of things that could cause this collapse, including the coronavirus, which is causing a lot of corporate shutdown, especially over in mainland China. And there's been a lot, and now that we really don't know how bad this coronavirus is going to be. But it's not just the coronavirus that could be causing the issues. It could be a lot of different things. It could be the instability in the Middle East, especially with the killing of Soleimani, along with trade wars with China. And even though Trump and the administration says that that's going well, and in a lot of ways it could be going well, but it's the problem with that is that it can be it could get really rocky really fast. And if one of these corporations that has this inflated type of debt right now, if something happens, that could cause a cascade effect, and it could start. Everything is very fragile at the top, and if one company fails, and if they, if their stock starts to collapse, it could cause the collapse of all these other stocks. And not only that, we have the Fed back into December. Voiced a lot of their concerns about the corporate debt and how unsustainable that is, and the fact that they can't keep these rates artificially at zero forever. The rates have to come up, and the more debt that these corporations have, when their debt, when they have to start paying back a lot of this debt, especially if interest rates are higher at that point, then a lot of this stuff could collapse very, very quickly. So, whenever someone says, and I know a lot of, Trump supporters want to constantly talk about the stock market, we have to understand what is causing the stock market to increase at such a rapid rate. And I'm not even going to say it's a rapid rate, but it's a very steady rate over the last decade. So we need to be a little bit more understanding about what's going on. Why do you think so many outfits are buying gold and silver in huge numbers right now? Why do you think so many billionaires are getting out of the stock market? Billionaires aren't buying stock right now. Corporations are. Corporations are buying their own stock. They're cannibalizing themselves. That is what's happening right now, and that's what's going to cause another bubble that's already happening right now. It's going to end up collapsing the entire system. It could be a much slower collapse, but it'll collapse either way. So we have to prepare for these types of things, and we kind of have to research. If whatever talking head is out there, even if it's Donald Trump himself talking about the economy, we have to kind of do our own research and not listen to the propaganda. We have to look at everything. We have to do our own research, and we have to stay informed about these types of things because it's very important. On the same kind of thread here that here Market Watch, this was back in 2019 November, a couple months ago. Earnings recession is expected to swallow all of 2019 after holiday forecast disappointment. Of course, there was a thing with the tax cuts that made the money even cheaper, especially, or the lower taxes through holiday season. So a lot of companies been taking advantage of that. Of course, we've seen higher profit in earnings at that point, but it's starting to slow. It's starting to slow now, and it's going to continue to slow, I believe, over the next 12 months. The real question with all of this, and the reason why I'm talking about it, is because what is going to really happen if the Fed decides to implode the market? There's a lot of people that are in the Fed that just do not like Trump, and they want to see him go away. And what better way to do that than imploding the market? All they have to do is just raise the rates a couple of points, especially once the corporate debt reaches a certain percentage, and it might already be there. If they actually start to raise these interest rates, that could cause a cascade effect. And what's worse for a re-election bid is a collapsing economy. And I think that, like I said, like I've been saying over the last year, that is the last bullet that they have. If they really want to get rid of Trump, and I think that they will end up doing this, those that are the elite, that are in the know, that are in the Federal Reserve and the internal banking system that we have, the corrupt banking system that we have, will end up pulling the plug on this. So stop blaming Trump for everything. We have to look at really what's going on. It's really the corrupt system that is at play. Trump can't do anything about that. Okay, he can't really do anything about that. I mean, I know that he's trying to artificially inflate this to make it look good, so he can be reelected. But once this reaches a certain point, and if he does get reelected, guess what's going to happen? The economy is going to end up imploding, and all hell is going to break loose, because people are going to already feel upset that Bernie didn't win, or some other Democrat didn't win this election, and everything is going to be even more compounded at that point. Now, if Bernie Sanders actually does get the nomination, expect the stock market to start collapsing. Many people have said that it would end up collapsing 30, 40, maybe 50%, even upon his nomination. That is why that a lot of people that are in the know, that are in the elite, do not want Bernie Sanders to be elected. It's not that they don't like the guy. It's not like they don't believe in things that he believes in. They just know that how the market would react. Now, they said that the same thing would happen with Trump, but the reason why that I believe that was just scaremongering tactics, because no matter what Trump does, no matter what happens, please notice that the stock market has continued to go up. So the stock market has pretty much separated itself from any kind of consumer sentiment. And that's very important to realize, because consumer sentiment and stuff like that and how people will actually feel about the economy is completely separated from the results. It just continues to go up, and it's all these corporations that are to continue to cannibalize themselves and continue to buy their own stock. Moving on here. This was from the stranger here. Get ready for a huge stock market crash that'll be caused by the buyback bubble. This was from May 2019. So they kind of know what's going on here. It's into the trillions of dollars that these corporations are actually buying their stock back, and they're increasing their debt so much at this point. Share buybacks soar to record $806 billion, bigger than a Facebook or ExxonMobil. This was from towards the beginning of last year. So it's only gotten worse. It's pretty much doubled since then, if not tripled. This was from Tackling Stock Buybacks, Too Little, Too Late from Foreign Investors. This is specifically about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, TCJA. Lower taxes for U.S. corporations with the stated goal of creating jobs through the U.S. That was what it was supposed to do, but it didn't. In 2018, however, large U.S. corporations spent more than $1.1 trillion to repurchase their own stock rather than invest in new plants and equipment or pay their workers more. This type of stuff is going to continue to go on. If you want to give companies free money, guess what? They're going to spend it, but they're not going to spend it on what you want it to, what you want them to. They might hire more people, but please understand that automation is taking over. That a lot of this unemployment or this employment is really about a lot of low-wage, unskilled labor and stuff like that, and a lot of manual labor, and not a lot of highly skilled, because a lot of companies just simply don't want to hire even more highly skilled workers because they have to pay them more, and they want to keep most of their profits. We're going in an endless circle, a whirlpool drain down the tubes, And like I said before, it doesn't matter really who's at the helm. We're going to end up, because of the actions of decades and decades ago. In fact, 100 years ago, when the Federal Reserve was actually created, this is the end game for all of this stuff. This is what's happening, and the roosters are coming home to roost and doing what they do. And this is going to all be, a very chaotic 2020, I believe, and I predict it's going to be even more chaotic than 2019 for obvious reasons. So that's all I have for you today, actually, for this video. I'll see you in the next video. I'll try to post another one today and going forward. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.